Savior?
Spiritually Rogue Podcast, weekly with Braxton and April Rome. When the world goes crazy, it's time to go rogue. Sundays, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going where we've never gone before, and we're taking you with us.
Oh my God!
Let's go rogue.
3, 2,
Incoming!
1, 0.
We're on a mission from God.
Put your ear to the speaker.
Crank it up. It'll knock your socks off. And now, this.
Oh,
Hello.
hello. Can
Good
you?
evening.
You got that? You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Hey, guys. So, welcome to Spiritually Rogue Podcast. I am April Roan, and
I am Braxton Roan.
we're excited you're here. Every week is a different topic because kind of life is always a different experience day to day. And recently, not recently, really, it's been a year, but we've been playing with a lot of, actually, it's been forever, political stuff and war. And I think so many of us are desensitized by certain things that things pop up on the news. And many of us are like, not a big deal compared to all of the big things that have been on the front page for a while.
Well, this war in Ukraine and everything that's happening with these people, you see it on the news, but you don't get the full big picture of it all. You can't really put your mind around what's really happening there. They only show you what they want you to see anyway, but there's also what happens after. And there are a lot of things that go on after this mess is done. I mean, besides just cleaning up and trying to put your lives back together. So we have a pretty special guest tonight, April. Why don't you bring him on in?
We do. This individual is actually experienced in lots of different avenues, and he's bringing that experience to us tonight. This is going to be coming to you from our opinions, his feelings, his experience. But I think if we look at the bigger picture tonight, it's important because it is divine. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Gary Fisher, who is 20 plus years active duty in the United States Air Force as Tech Sergeant. He is also co-founder of See First Midwest, if I'm correct, See First Paranormal Midwest.com. It'll be up here. And he's coming to us with years of military experience and paranormal experience. So, Gary, we want to welcome you to the podcast. Hello.
Hey, Gary, how are you, man?
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Really
good to see you.
Good to see you guys, too. It's been too long.
It has. It has.
It is. You have the best hugs. So,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
you're very welcome.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for all your service because unfortunately I tried to get in the Air Force, but asthma kept me out. So I did try, but I'm very appreciative of your service. So I thank you, and I know all of us do.
Yes.
It's nice to be appreciated. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I could tell with any job, period, it's not easy taking orders. And so I can only imagine what it's like in the military. I guess it takes corporate to a different level.
It does. And it has some trying times with that. But, for me and for my family, the trade-offs were well worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have seen more than your fair share of things that, they show us pictures and video on TV of what's going on, but we don't get the full scope. I mean,
Sure.
And you've seen it all from beginning to end and what goes on afterwards and also had your own experiences, and we kind of want to talk about what's going on in the war in Ukraine and get your kind of take on things.
Sure.
You want to go ahead and start, or do you want me to go ahead?
Well, I wanted to focus not just on the military aspect.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I don't know how you cannot. However, with your experience, you've been overseas. You've been in places where multiple wars took place on large levels. You know, we're talking genocide now, but you've been in places where massive loss took place. And not only did you experience what people would by being in the military and being in that environment, but you've experienced the paranormal aftermath of some of those events.
Yeah,
Could you
absolutely.
elaborate a little bit?
Sure. Real quick, though, I'll give this caveat just to keep my butt safe. Anything I
Right.
say tonight is entirely my personal opinion, does not reflect the Department of Defense, the Air Force, or the United States government. And I have to say that because I'm technically still active duty till June 1st. And then I'm a civilian employee for the Air Force after that. So, yeah, let's just cover that basis. Anything I say is just my personal opinion, and it's personal things that I've witnessed. Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to travel the world really with the Air Force. You know, I've been to some really exotic locations like South Korea and Kuwait, and probably the most exotic location the Air Force can send you, Columbus, Mississippi. Um,
Whoa.
that was my worst assignment. Can't nothing comes close to C-bus, but yeah. So you know, I've experienced a lot. I've seen a lot of post-war things in those countries that I've been to. You know, when you're in South Korea, the enemy is literally 40 miles to the north. And so you go to bed every night thinking
Wow.
about that. When I was in Kuwait, you could look to the border of Iraq and you could still see the shelling going on in the distance. So it really kind of opens your eyes. Wow, this is completely different. You know, we've not had you know, not counting 9/11 and things like that, we've not had an attack on this soil since Pearl Harbor. Um,
I did
and
not
so,
talk about the divine timing. I'm trying to put a banner together, and that was not meant to pop up. But holy crow, divine timing.
yeah,
All right.
if anything I say tonight makes you feel like killing
Oh
yourself,
my
there's the
goodness
suicide hotline.
gracious.
Well,
Let me
so
click the right button. Create a banner.
Oh,
All
I
right.
boy.
will try and keep this as light as possible, I promise. But you
Yeah.
know, even in like Kuwait, as you're driving down the highway and you look off into the desert, you see the old shelled out tanks from the Gulf War. You know, I was
Wow.
stationed at Ali Asalim. Part of their bunkers are still destroyed from when Iraq took them over and we bunker bombed them, basically. So you see the remnants of what's gone on before. Being stationed in Korea, I was able to go in the tunnels that the North and South Koreans used to fight and travel in. And you talk about having to bend down for a guy my size, I'm 6 foot
I
and it's
bet.
miles. So you get like 3 miles down, and then you're like, crap, I got to go 3 miles back huddled over. My quads have never hurt
Whoa.
that bad.
You're
Um,
back.
your back, yeah, you bump
Oh,
your head constantly coming out. But you know, I did get to do some cool things. When you go to the demilitarized zone, which is the line between North and South Korea, you actually have an opportunity to actually set foot in North Korea. And
Oh
that was
wow.
just a crazy thing. And when you're standing on the South Korean side and you're looking at the North Korean side, it's night and day, right? South Korea is like here. You go to Seoul, you're in New York, basically, right?
uh,
That's you know the
Comfortable.
technology and comfortable and restaurants, movie theaters, the whole shebang. But as we were standing there, our guide said, "Hey, before we go in." You know, because there's a patio you go out on and you can see the buildings on North Korean side. No sudden movements. And I laughed and he goes, "No, I'm serious. No sudden movements." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because this this area, this DMZ, if you do anything they consider an act of aggression, they have the right to shoot you." And I said,
Oh
"That
my
guy standing by
goodness.
the door with a handgun's not going to hit me from there." He goes, "Look 3 windows down." And there was a guy with a sniper rifle. So any fast movements or reaching, they have the right to kill
They
you right
don't
there on the
need
spot.
permission.
They don't,
really?
Wow.
you know. So
That's
it's
scary.
yeah. In fact,
Wow.
hang on one second here. I have
I'm gonna put his
a
website up really
piece of
quickly.
the DMZ fencing here that I brought back with me to
Oh
just for the
wow.
historical significance of it. Um, it's just you know war is like the paranormal. It is thought of differently in different places around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the paranormal in this country the same way they do overseas. When I first got to Kuwait, there was a hangar on from where I worked on the flight line to get to the chow hall. There was a hangar that was in between there, and I'd walk by it every day, and it just gave off some weird vibes, right? And I happened to notice that it was completely sealed up, all the doors and windows completely sealed. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. So one day I grabbed one of the Kuwaiti Air Force guys and I said, "Hey, what's the deal with this hangar?" And he said, "Oh, that's the hangar when Iraq invaded in the first Gulf War. That's where Saddam took all the Kuwaiti generals and he hung them all from the rafters in there." And he said, that's a no-go place. We don't go in there anymore. He said the only people allowed to go in there are Muslim clerics, and they won't go in there because, in fact, according to him, the nooses are still hanging from the rafters in that building.
Ooh, I just got chills.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so I'm like, well, that would certainly explain the energy and the vibes I get, coming off of it. I tried my damnedest to get in there to just even take a peek, and it was certainly didn't want to
no.
cause an international incident. So they're like,
No.
nope, that's not happening.
Right.
There's
Um,
trespassing and then there's trespassing.
yeah. There's hey, you just ended up on CNN and Fox News trespassing, and I wasn't ready for that.
Right.
But when I was in Korea at the base I was stationed at there at the top of the hill, there were hangings and executions from the Korean War. And so, there's just and one thing that I found interesting too was the older generations in both countries liked having the US military there because they made them feel safe. The youngers don't want us there at all.
Hmm.
They don't think they need us. They don't
Interesting.
want us. I had one guy in Kuwait go, we don't want you here. And I kind of laughed and said, I don't really want to be here, but here we are,
Right.
right? Like I'm away from my family helping you guys. And another thing I found out is so the current generation, well, this is back in 2011. I'll state that generation, the younger generation at that point, were all half Iraqi because when Iraq invaded, they raped all the Kuwaiti women. All of those children who are now in their late teens, early 20s
Or
are all
half
half
American.
Iraqi.
Or
They're all
half
half
Iraqi,
Iraqi
but
and half Kuwaiti. Yeah.
they raped the okay. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what the heck? So when you
Ugh.
were over there for somebody that what I like about tonight's show is it's really going to be a bridge between military mindset
Mhm.
and the actual human spirit and experience. You're a feeler, you're clairsentient, you can't help it, but then you suit up, you go to war, and
Mhm.
what does that do? Because the average Joe comes back with PTSD.
So this is again my opinion. You see
Yes.
the things that you see over there. You're either really good at compartmentalizing or you suffer from it. I am blessed with the ability to compartmentalize. Do I have PTSD? Yes, I've been diagnosed with it, but it's very minor to so many of what my brothers and sisters have to go through.
Right.
It doesn't affect me on a daily basis, but there are things, I don't sit with my back to a door in a restaurant.
See, I
I
get
Huh.
that.
don't like being in public, like in a Walmart if it's really crowded. That just yeah. Hey, let's hurry up, get our stuff and go. Right? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have time for it.
Right.
Um, so it definitely can affect you. I don't see how it can't. Right? One day, so we in Kuwait we lived at one base and we worked at another. So we had to convoy every day. We had to arm up every day, and
Ooh.
so there was a bus, or I'm sorry, there was a van, two buses, and another van, and I was always driving the back van. One day we're going to work in the morning. I see the bus in front of me suddenly pull to a hard left, and I see a cloud of dust. Like, what the hell? And then out of the cloud of the dust comes a solid steel trash truck rolling on its side back towards me. So pull the van over. On the last rotation out my passenger side window, the driver gets ejected. He hit the ground. I knew he was dead as soon as he hit, just by the way, the force and violence that he hit with.
Oh.
Um, and then they called SP down. And so one of our security forces, our Air Force cops guys, what had happened was they were driving. This truck pulled out of the dump, got parallel with him. His back tire somehow caught the front tire of one of our buses and it rolled it back. And as it rolled it back, it pulled the side of the bus off. Well, this poor kid was asleep like this with the back of his head on the window. And so it took that part of his head off.
Oh
Ooh.
gosh.
So we're in the middle of the desert. I'm having to do self-aid buddy care, and trying to get this kid stable until our medics could get there. I and other people. We had a team of people, folks that were trained. We did. He was 18-year-old kid, had a wife and a brand new
Oh,
baby at home.
Oh,
Last I heard, when again this was 2011, he had gotten air evac to Kuwait East City. They stabilized him, and then he got in Ramstein Air Base, which is a huge medical facility for the military.
yes, it is.
And I understand he returned home. He had a TBI, but I think he recovered pretty good.
and a TBI is what?
Traumatic brain injury.
Brain injury, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those things. Like you just feel the heaviness when you go to these places, and you can feel the sadness. And although I can't speak for every military member, the vast majority of them that I've known in my 20 plus years, none of us want to go to war.
Mm-mm.
None of us
No.
do. From the general to the lowest private or airman, none of us want to go to war. There are people in other jobs in the government that have agendas and make money and different things, right? They're the ones that want to go to war. And sometimes
Right.
you
The
have
ones
to
that
go to
make the
war,
money.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go to war. Sometimes we have to be the big bully on the block, right? The world is a safer place when the United States is the big bully on the block. It just is. Because I think we have enough semblance of common sense and enough checks and balances that, God forbid, we should ever have to even attempt to use a nuclear button. There's going to be a lot of things checked off before we get there. You can't say that about a lot of countries, right? A lot of them are just
No.
like, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit
Yeah.
it. And, we live in that world. And
That's
it used to
scary.
just be us and Russia, right? It's not just us and Russia that have that capability anymore. So, I take a lot of pride in defending this nation, and I've made a lot of sacrifices. My family's made more, right, in 20 years. But, I do take a lot of pride in helping to defend this nation. But you do get to these other places, and so funny story. I don't know if this is still the case. This was 2012 when I was in Korea. At the base I was at, you had South Korean Air Force guards at the gate, and you had American guards at the gate. The South Koreans' guns didn't have any bullets in them. They wouldn't arm their guys up. Our guys had them. Their guys just stood there with empty guns as a deterrent. So you can kind of see the differences in how people view their military, how much trust they have in their military. But yeah, it's certainly, because you got to remember, like, especially as you get
Horrible.
closer to that North Korean border, there are family members in South Korea that have family members in North Korea that they've not seen in years.
That's so sad.
There's another part where there's an official train that people get on the train in South Korea. They go to North Korea to go to work for the day. They work in North Korea, jump back on the train, and come back. But at any time, they can get stopped before that border and held captive.
Wow.
They have a place called Propaganda Town in North Korea, where if you look at it from a distance, it looks like a happy little town. They got grocers and restaurants and stuff. Till you drive about 20 miles around to the side and take a look, they're movies. It's a movie studio. It's a prop. It's walls. It's not even buildings. And these people go out every day and pretend to be people in this town. And that's what North Korea sells the rest of the world. See, we don't treat our people bad. We're not oppressive here. I challenge anyone to take a look at a satellite map of North Korea at night. The only place you're going to see lights in that entire country is right around the palace. Everything else is in darkness. They have no
Oh my
power.
goodness.
They have no running water in most of the country. But that's not the agenda that they sell. And granted, our country does it as well, right? Like I think
Yeah.
Brack said earlier, what you see on TV isn't necessarily the 100% accurate picture, right? Whether
Exactly.
no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, what Fox News, CNN,
Right.
NBC, USA Today, there's agendas of what they want to show. I challenge people to look at multiple sources, because I think you'll probably get a more accurate picture that way. Even if you're, if you're a Republican, watch CNN once in a while. If you're on the other side,
Right.
watch Fox News once in a while, and don't just tear it apart simply because it's on the other side.
Right.
Really take from it and compare it to what your side's doing, and make your own decision. Because that's what it used to be. The news used to just tell us what's out there, and we made up our own decision. And now it seems like, and again, on both sides, they're going to tell you how to feel about war and everything. Don't let them do that. Make your own
No.
decision.
You're very intelligent, and you think, which is the big right now. So I'm finding that even though it's war and we're really surrounded by a lot of chaos and conflict right now,
Mhm.
uh a lot is chaos and conflict. And they always say history repeats itself. And I have such a hard time, and I know what this is just going to probably be opening a can of worms, but that's fine with me.
Okay.
um I find it interesting how many individuals aren't taking any of this more seriously. Not
Hmm.
that there's anything you and I can do. However, when you combine it with the amount of front page news, now again, I'm not saying that I would say America's much further along when it comes to propaganda, I would hope. But there's such an awareness that's very clear right now, but I don't see any of the intelligent thinkers stepping forward. I think that there's a lot of people watching this war unfold, which, by the way, half of it's not on YouTube anymore.
No, it's more like the war between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp at the moment. It's more important.
Right.
I'd rather be in the
Which-
other war. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks. I know. I've had enough. Right.
Like,
You know why I think that is, April, is we're just oversaturated. We've
right.
been at war. The first Gulf War kicked off when I was, I think, a senior in high school.
Yep.
I'm coming up on my 30
Right.
year anniversary this year. So we've been at war for 30 years.
Yes.
Right.
There comes a point where you can only bang that drum so long before people just lose interest, or they go, oh, cool, we're pulling out of Afghanistan. Oh, but now we're in the middle of this Ukraine war. Oh, Russia kind of calmed down. Now it's North Korea and China. Oh, wait, here comes Russia again. I think a lot of people go, we've seen this, nothing's really bad happened to me.
Right.
I pay more for gas. That's probably the most, and
Right.
goods. That's the big, everybody's, pushing point right here as well. Right. Like I have a truck and it's like $100 to fill up. I get you.
Yeah.
But I think we're just overloaded and we're oversaturated. And I think that's why you're not getting the real critical thinkers involved. I think they're worrying about other
Tired.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really just dealing with other things.
It is energy is everywhere, and it is foolish to believe that in places where large traumatic events took place, there wouldn't be any type of either residual and or actual intelligent energy. But when you move into a home and there was nothing but fighting with the family that lived there before, you're going to feel it. People feel it. So when you're going into or you're flipping through the channel and you're looking at all of, I don't know how many more bombs can hit Mariupol. There's nothing left. I feel
No.
so bad. It's like, you months ago, everything was beautiful over there, and it's pulverized and then pulverized and pulverized. But
Mm-hmm.
with all of this, what kind of energy are we looking at with Ukraine? I mean, I'm asking this, but as an empath to an empath, the amount that we have watched
Sure.
that lost lives. I'm just talking civilians here because
Just
this
brutal.
is not a war against civilians, but
Right.
whatever. That alone, the magnitude of that, what do you believe that land is going to be like moving forward?
So that one's tough, right? I definitely agree that there's a lot of traumatic energy there, right? From any place that would deal with that type of shelling and constant war and battles. But I think in this case, it's kind of unique is there's also that spirit of the little engine that could, right?
Right.
When this thing kicked off, they should have been part of Russia by now, according to most experts, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And those guys are like, no, you're not
We're
taking
gonna
our
win
land.
this.
We're
We're
going to
gonna
win
win
this,
this.
and we're going to
Yes.
be smarter than you, and we're going to fight harder than you. And regardless of whether you think, and I've seen both sides, and so my opinion doesn't matter. It's like everybody else's, but
Right.
some people think it's Ukraine's fault. Some people think it's Russia's fault. Regardless of whose fault you think this whole thing is, you got to admire their spunk,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're dealing with a
Right.
world power, and they're telling them to piss off.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something admirable about that. So I think you're going to have a mixture where you wouldn't necessarily Vietnam used to be North and South Vietnam.
Mhm.
When North Vietnam took it over, it's just Vietnam. So yeah, there was some fighting and some resistance, but I don't think you have that little engine that could mentality there and that energy.
Mhm.
So you're probably dealing with a lot more traumatic stuff there. You'll have it in Ukraine, but I think you'll have some positive energy there too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he's a little warrior, man.
He
I'm
is.
like, I wish he could come over here and show our guys how to do this shit. Some
It-
of them because
it's
he's something else.
I absolutely hate Michael Jordan as a basketball player, but I respect Michael Jordan and just in awe watching him play growing up, right? And that's where I feel like Ukraine's like, no matter whether I think he's right or wrong, just the
Mhm.
what he's doing is admirable.
Yeah,
They believe that whatever they're doing is correct, and they're not going to let someone in and come in and tell them, no, he's the underdog. They're the underdog,
Well,
and everybody loves an underdog.
I have to
yeah, they
say
do.
that spunk is, I believe, exactly what is needed now. Do I want a rebellion rising up? We've watched it during Renaissance period. We've watched it during the Crusade. I mean, really,
Mhm.
that is change, evolution, and I kind of think that that spirit is really required now. I think so much of the world has become robotic and automatic, and that's not the human being, the spiritual human being by
Mm-mm.
nature. So I like what is with the spunk. It breaks my heart. I don't understand. My brain doesn't understand. I guess what I'm seeing is war is like business, and every decision is like business. And I'm still thinking, I don't understand why it's taking months to step in and fight the bully. Well, because they're not part of NATO. And
No,
I'm
their
learning
hands are
all that,
tired.
but I still feel like, holy crow. And I understand if that stepped in, it would trigger World War III. But we have sat by for months and we
Mhm.
have watched mass disregard for life. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the empath in me. Maybe I'm always going to be this way.
Well, I told her, and this is definitely just my opinion. Doesn't reflect y'all at all, but I don't understand. I wish we had someone like Chris Kyle to go over there and just end it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but he is so well protected and hiding so well that he's letting everybody else fight his little war for him, and he's in a protected, cave somewhere, wherever he's at. But I just told her, I said, man, I wish that we had the capabilities of doing that, and ending this whole thing. And
Well,
we wouldn't all be, worried about him hitting that little button because he's not mentally stable at all. So,
winds come in a lot of different shapes and forms, right? And that's the one
Hmm.
thing we got to remember. So I think my personal opinion, I think Ukraine's going to hold on, right? And I think they're going to drive them eventually out. How long that takes, I couldn't tell you. I think that's a lesson and that's a message for the rest of the smaller countries in the world.
Hmm.
Um, you don't need the United States of America to always come in and save you. Sometimes you can fight back yourself. Yes, we're sending aid. I know that's a sticky subject with some folks based on conditions here and what things
Hmm.
cost here and the amount of money we're sending there. And
Mm.
it's above my pay grade to get into that discussion. But
Right.
ours as well.
uh, I think there can be wins out of this, even if it takes a while. Um,
Hmm.
they're setting a blueprint for how to protect yourself with some help from friends, with some indirect help from friends.
Hmm.
And I think that might also challenge, from things I've read, and again, I can only go off what I read, Putin's losing popularity in Russia because he didn't go in and handle this, whether they thought he should or not. He's kind of being made to look silly by this little country, right?
Hmm.
So it may not be all flowers and unicorns for him when this thing's over anyway. His next
Yeah.
election, he definitely won't have the stranglehold he had before.
No. And
Um,
when you send people into a military operation and they don't even really know why they're truly there, and you just throw them to the wolves, that's not going to win you any popularity contest either.
no.
No.
And
Um,
like we talked about Korea, right? Like a lot of the Ukrainians have family in Russia and vice versa.
Right.
yes.
So they're coming over and like, oh, it's cousin Vlad. Hey, cousin Vlad, don't shoot me. Come in and have some food. right? I've
Right.
heard stories of that, like the Russian
Right.
guys getting there and going, "No, these are like our family. We know these folks. We're not attacking them. This is silly."
It's on a vibrational level. It's a lot of chaos and conflict.
Mhm.
Uh,
And very I don't think they planned it out too well. I just saw earlier when I did a little update check that Ukraine has taken out one of their helicopters just recently, and another one of their ships is being towed away in the Black Sea because it got destroyed. So Ukraine may be little, but I've always heard you got to watch the little guys because they got a little bit more fire in their britches than the big boys do sometimes because they are little, you know.
I'd much rather deal with a pit bull than a chihuahua.
Yeah, right.
True.
Most of the
True.
pit bulls I've met are sweet. Most of the
Right.
chihuahuas, not so much.
No, no. That's a good analogy.
How does true chihuahuas are nuts. How I guess too, if you're nuts, there's not so much you can lose. So with you military. So my brother is military. My stepfather was military. Um, there's a mindset. There's a definite mindset. Couldn't do military. I mean, really, I would
You can't
fail
get
out.
up and
I
somebody
fail out
yelling at
on
you trying to
my
get you up. No.
right. So I'd cry. My, but how do you, being a feeler, blend so well uh in such a large area, which is so much of a machine?
So I've recently come to discover that I'm claircognizant, right? And
Clear
so
knowing.
I get intuition. I can meet someone and within like the first minute I can tell you this guy's or girl's full of shit. Can I say shit?
Oh yeah, you can say whatever you
Yes,
want.
Okay.
totally.
This guy or girl's full of shit, or this guy or girl's a pretty good person. I can go into situations and go, Spidey sense is tingling. This might not be the best situation, right? And so on a paranormal level, that served me well in a lot of locations, right? Or in dealing with people in the paranormal,
Of
going into
course.
someone's house who I've never met before, and things like that. But when you're in a big group of people and you're deployed, it's good and it's bad. I finally figured out why it seemed like I was playing off everyone's emotions while I was there. The
Mm,
down people, I could tell, hey, you okay? Well, no, not really. You're the only person that really asked, though. Um, and the good ones, the good vibes when you're having a good time and just clowning around, because that's your family while you're deployed.
of course.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm a work in progress at. Now that I know that I am, it explains a lot of things that I've experienced, in at least in my adult life. Um, but it can be tricky.
Eh,
I myself back in 2019 went through a really traumatic time. My wife passed away
yeah.
3.5 weeks later. I ended up in the hospital with emergency open heart surgery. Then they talked about medically disqualifying me from the Air Force. And so that's a lot, right? Like I hadn't even started to process or uh, deal with my
Grief.
wife's loss. And now I've got my own bag of stuff.
Right.
But I had a great support system and I had a lot of people that loved me and cared about me. And I
Yeah.
fought and I fought. And when I was too tired, they fought for me. Um, so, you flashed that suicide thing earlier. I would say that to that topic. Keep fighting. And when you're too tired to fight, lean on people to fight for you till you can catch your breath.
It's
Um,
important. I agree. And I think
absolutely.
that's what the military also teaches you. Because I have seen where it becomes family very quickly.
Hmm.
And when you're on the front lines, I mean, these people are going to be
Well, they got your
gonna
back and you got their back. There
correct.
ain't
Absolutely.
nothing more close than that as far as a
No,
relationship. You have to have a
no.
lot of trust in your group. And,
The military and
that's
sports bring people from all walks of life, all colors, all religious creeds, all sexual
yeah.
orientations, everything together. And is it perfect? No, the military is a microcosm of the world, but it really kind of forces you together and to understand people from other cultures and backgrounds and
Yeah.
and things like that. And it's a really good thing. when I got out of the hospital for my, open heart surgery, my mom couldn't get here for like 3 or 4 days to help me out because I needed someone with me for like 24 hours a day for the first couple weeks. I couldn't
Right.
couldn't do anything on my own. My work sent someone over to my house and they stayed in my guest room. They were there 12-hour shifts. One guy was there during the day, one guy was there at night, 7 to
Oh,
7. And they stayed with me until my mom got there.
Wow.
You don't necessarily get that at Google or,
No.
no.
and name a company. Most places you might have one or two people that would help you out in as much as they could, but you're not going to get that consistency.
There are
Um,
still good companies out there to work
yeah,
for that do
there
care
are.
about their
Yeah, I don't want to say
employees, so it's
all,
pretty
but
cool. No, not
yeah,
even close to all, but there are some
yeah.
that,
Some.
that will help their employees out and do
But
take a human approach to their employees. So that's cool.
and it's because they've all been there. They've all been away from their family, and
Yeah.
they've all needed someone to take them to a doctor's appointment that they couldn't drive to because their family wasn't there, or they've all been deployed and missing their wife and kids, or missing birthdays or Christmases, or missing people dying.
Yeah.
Someone passes away and you're deployed and you can't get home in time. So
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I
no.
mean, I've watched my brother miss. He's got 5. They make beautiful babies, but he's missed a lot. He was out on a
Mhm.
submarine. Um, m- by you being military, what are the positives that brings to paranormal work? So
Well,
where you're a feeler and a knower,
mhm,
the intuition is really a plus.
Oh yeah,
sure.
that's
With
your
the
best tool right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And then using certain military aspects in your paranormal research and work.
Sure. Yeah. So I've had 2 jobs in my 20 years in the military. First job I had was a aerospace ground equipment technician. So that's like a flight line maintainer. I didn't work on the planes, but I worked on the equipment that the guys use to work on the planes.
Okay.
So that gave me a lot of electrical skills, heating and air conditioning skills, plumbing
Ah,
skills, hydraulic skills. Those go a long way in trying to debunk claims and trying to figure out if there's a logical explanation for what folks are experiencing.
hmm.
Second job I had was an analyst. Analytical skills come in
Yes.
Yes, they do.
hugely in an investigation.
Yes, they
So
do.
Yes.
between those two, I feel pretty comfortable going into any type of location and trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Because every time someone calls, you're going to think I'm crazy. And the first thing I tell them is, no, I don't think you're crazy. You're experiencing something. My job is to try and help you figure out what that is.
Right.
If it's, a non paranormal, well, then I can suggest an electrician or whatever to help you with those things. And if it is paranormal, well, let's see what we can do to help.
Right.
You're very balanced.
I try. I've
It's
always had a servant attitude. I thought as a kid I'd probably be a police officer, and I ended up in the military instead. And I just to make the extension of my paranormal work. The main reason I do what I do is to help people. I don't
yeah.
want someone to feel. I want someone to feel safe and empowered in their own home.
That's what it should, how way it should be anyway, right?
Yeah,
You're a
absolutely.
natural born leader, Mr. Fisher.
Don't spread that around.
I know. And I love how confident you are in your passion in doing this. I do feel
Mhm,
there are some people that do certain things that shouldn't be doing certain things.
mhm.
And then there are some people that it's just in your blood. Um, in the last 2 years, what have you felt on a vibrational level as a feeler and claircognizant, a knower? What
Mhm.
have you felt vibrationally on our earth? Have you felt changes? Have you seen
Yes.
shifts?
Yeah. And some weird things like, right, you would think just from to take it out of the realm of that for a minute, you would think because of the deaths associated with COVID and everything else, there's been a lot of them, right?
Right?
Um, you would think, at least in my mind, that probably should be getting your group probably should be getting a few more calls, right?
Right.
And actually, it's not. It's slowed down over the last couple of years, and I guess someone could say maybe that's just because people don't want to strange people in their house, and
Yeah.
I guess that's part of it. But just from a like you were saying a vibrational thing, like it's a weird time. I've been doing this since 2009. I
Hmm.
had my first experience as a kid at age 11, but 2009 since I joined my first team, um, I've not felt it this way before, and so whatever happened, there's a disturbance in the force, is a famous movie used to say.
Yes, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it.
Something is shifting. I mean, even locations I've worked to go back and work again, the energy that was there has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain that. We do have a little message. Oh, look at this. There's my Deborah Lynn. Hello, Deborah Lynn. Thank you for being here and joining us tonight with Gary Fisher. So, Gary, I'm going to take a quick little break just to remind people to click the subscribe, like, share this information because it's good stuff.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and jingle that bell. You know I like my bells jingle. Ooh, ooh.
Okay, her bell and her jingle.
Jingle the bells. So tell me a little bit about See First Midwest. I saw that you had See First Paranormal that broke off.
Yeah, so I was part of a group in Florida called the Paranormal Research Organization of Florida, or Proof.
Woo-hoo.
And I and some of my other members of that group decided, in no disrespect to Proof, we just kind of wanted to take our stuff in a different direction. So we kind of broke off from them, and we formed See First, Paranormal Florida down in Tampa. And I was with them until I got stationed up here in Illinois. And so we just formed a brother group up here, See First Paranormal Midwest. And so we service all of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. So that keeps us pretty busy. Yeah,
I bet.
Ooh. So with your group, what are certain things that you do together that has been tried and true in terms of working as a group? And I say this because there are a lot of people that work paranormal environments, they work paranormal cases, and they don't know how to work well together. So, with your military background, I'm sure that this helps, make your group, especially as big as it is now, so cohesive.
Yeah, so I think, I try to subscribe to the fact that, your group should be like a family. It really should.
Right.
And we all have individual skills that we bring to an investigation. And so instead of concentrating on the differences, promote the skills that they bring, right?
Yeah.
One of our guys is very good with rods. I can't use dowsing rods to save my life. So that's a skill that he has, and he takes his dowsing rods, and we have a medium. She gives us her impression. We use our equipment from the scientific end and our analytical skills and our critical thinking skills, and we just marry it all together. We take everybody's input and we listen, right? Like a lot of places, like, we're the founders, what we say goes.
Right.
Well, that's sometimes you need that, right? Like sometimes you have to have that. But a lot of times you don't. A lot of times it should be, hey, this is kind of the decision point. This is our team. What do you guys want to do? And we kind of go with majority rules. Unless they're just crazy nut jobs and I tell them, go away, I'm going to make this decision. No, seriously, I don't do
Executive
that.
decision.
Yeah, exactly. But it's important too, I think, to get together when you're not doing investigations as friends.
Amen.
Team building type stuff.
Yes.
We have a one of our members' family owns a barbecue restaurant. We go there and eat all the time as a team just to hang out.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible for a team building. You can't go wrong with barbecue.
No. And we were blessed. There's another bar restaurant here in the local area that gives us free reign to go in whenever we want. And it's pretty active. And so we get to test new theories, new equipment, new members when they come around.
Love.
In a kind of controlled environment where we kind of know what's going on. Like we had one lady that said she was psychic, and we brought our medium with us because I have verified she's 100% legit. And the lady's sitting there and she goes, "Oh, I'm so charged up. It's right behind me. Can you see it? It's right behind me." My medium looks at her and goes, "No, there's nothing over there."
Yeah.
Like, all right. Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Next.
Well, that's light and fun and true. But, when you're working together as a family, just like with war, you know,
Mhm.
with your what is Air Force would be your, you have a platoon, then you have your
Squadron.
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 Thank you.
There you go.
So it's important to trust each other, because in the paranormal realm, you don't know what you're walking into. Same thing with
Yes.
war overseas.
Mhm.
So and same thing, because like you said earlier, paranormal is war is a lot like paranormal, vice versa.
Yeah.
You're dealing with layers of time. You're dealing with different
It
cultures.
could be spiritual warfare you're dealing with sometimes with the
Yes.
paranormal too. So
Yeah.
Run the gambit of what you run into.
yeah, exactly.
You know, I still find it interesting that you did all of this even overseas, and you worked your stuff and you did it within, like, your brothers in the military never gave you a hard time, or they just thought
Oh
you were
no,
weird.
no. So I can tell you kind of the timeline and outline of how it goes when I get to a new location. What do you do for a hobby? I'm a paranormal investigator. Ha ha ha! Ghostbuster. Okay, cool. And then they all go about their business. And then about
Yeah.
a month later, hey, Sergeant Fisher, can I talk to you about something real quick? Yeah. You mind if I close the door? No, go ahead. Shut the door. So check this out. I got something going on at my house. Would you guys be able to come over? And that's the same guy that was making fun of me 4 weeks
Right.
ago.
Of course.
And so that's kind of the how the outline goes. They give you a hard time in the beginning. Some people are like, that's complete bullshit. I just don't believe it. Or you get the very religious folks.
Oh,
I only believe in angels and demons, but not ghosts. No,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not super religious, but I kind of thought those all went hand in hand, according to what my knowledge level of the Bible is. But
yeah.
Right.
whatever. Teach
Yeah,
his own.
I went on my interview for my job that I got when we moved to Texas. And, of course, I worked for Paranologies and I built paranormal equipment. And,
Mhm.
and I said, building paranormal equipment or whatever. And my boss goes, "What in the hell is paranormal?" And I had to explain it to him. And I
Right.
thought, I came home and I go, "I ain't getting that freaking job. He thinks I'm nuts."
It's
What's your wife do?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny along about Halloween every year. Well, probably like first to beginning of or middle of September, public affairs at whatever base I'm at. Hey, we heard you do ghost hunting. Could we do
Oh,
a special on you and an article or a news thing? And like, oh yeah. How come you don't call
Now
me
it's
in
not weird
July?
anymore.
Yeah, how
how
come it's not in
neat.
July? Yeah,
Yeah.
but
What was one of the most unnerving moments in your career, military and paranormal?
so a nerving moment in my career would have been watching that gentleman get ejected from that accident.
Mm,
Because I just knew he was gone.
yeah.
Checked him as soon as I got out of my vehicle, and of course verified he was. But everyone else, and I don't know if that's my claircognizance coming in or what, but I knew he was gone. And I still, I don't have nightmares about it, but I still wake up thinking about it sometimes.
Mm,
I take solace in the fact I was able to help that young security forces troop get back to his family.
yeah.
Um, but you see a lot of just shitty things, and so you, like I said, you're either dealing with PTSD or you're good at compartmentalizing or both. Um, as far as unnerving from the paranormal side, anything having to do with children. And when
Right.
you research and find out there was abuse of children, um, and the next thing I would say is I don't think it's necessarily unnerving, but just surprising. So I always joked with my wife that, hey, if I go before you, once I started doing this, I'm going to come back to one of my friends and I'm going to give you a code word and you'll know it's me. And the code word was blueberry pancakes. And shortly after she passed away, we were at this restaurant bar that I said we use kind of as our team training facility, just having a ghost box session. And my wife's voice came through and said blueberry pancakes while I had the headset on.
Oh,
And talk about just catching you off guard, right? Like I know she's
yeah.
with
Took
me.
your
I've
breath
had that.
away.
I know that. I've had many people tell me that and verify it. I knew that, but just wasn't ready for it, wasn't expecting it. So yeah, that definitely almost knocked me out of my chair.
I bet.
And
I
that's
mean,
not I don't care what anyone says about Ghost Box. You're not getting blueberry pancakes on a radio station at
No, you're
2
not.
a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Right.
No, you're not.
Right.
And it was her voice as well. So
That's one of the most treasured things that you'll ever have, I'm sure, in the paranormal.
Absolutely.
Because when my best friend passed away, I was just messing around with this spirit box and an SCD-1 and all this, and I had my portal out, and I was just kind of like, I kind of want to check on my friend Kenny. Are you there? And his voice came over and said, "Kenny, what?" And I was like, "Wait a minute." So I you know how you want to hear it so bad and you want it to be them. Well, I had it verified and it was. So I get you when you say that. It's my most treasured EVP and coolest experience yet, I think, in the paranormal.
No, I mean it is
It
his
meant a
voice.
lot. It is his voice. Yeah, it was verified. So
other
That's
things that
powerful.
kind of shake me a little bit is when we do like not necessarily battlefields, but any place involving military members. I kind of just
Yes.
get real kind of somber with that, just because that could have been me.
Do you ever feel like when you were overseas, did you ever feel like did a soldier ever connect to you spiritually? Like
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. In South Korea, we investigated one of the buildings on base because a lot of the girls that worked in the military personnel section would stay late at night to work on cases and things for folks, and they like we don't want to stay here because there's just noises and crazy stuff going on, and so we investigated. It had to do with someone that had died, during the Korean War there on base. Like I said, at the top of the hill was where they executed a lot of folks. So he connected with me, and it's just kind of a shared thing, right? Like it's like having a conversation with someone that's been deployed where you've been deployed or gone through similar things. You just have that connection, right? And yeah, he was in the 60s, the Korean War, and I was there in 2011 or 12. So
Wow.
that's 50 years later. But military is military, right? Like if you go back in time and talk to a military person from the Civil War, there's still
You
a lot
would,
of
right.
similarity things to military life as there is now. And there's differences, obviously, but there's things that you can identify with. So that was kind of special. He felt he was stuck there, so we did our
Oh.
best to move him on, and I think we did. But yeah, definitely an interesting experience.
Most people will never talk about their abilities as if
Mhm.
it's, my eyes work, my nostrils work, my claircognizance works.
excuse me.
I think it's very powerful that you are a man. Oh, your wife is here. She goes, because I trained him. um,
He's not wrong.
no, she's so sweet. You knew she wasn't going to not take advantage of the moment, but
I kind of thought so.
you're different, and you are a man and you are military, but you bring that together as if it's normal, which it is. And I think that is so important because there are so many people that are not comfortable with their own abilities, or men don't feel things.
Sure.
You're not talking
Bullshit.
about me, right?
No, you embrace it reluctantly,
Sometimes,
but you
yeah.
embrace it. What kind of advice can you give to maybe other military members that are starting to wake up to the fact that they're aware, and they may be growing away from their, you know, they're open to things.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say, if you're interested in expanding that and growing with that, because some people aren't. They're like, nope, I'm gonna throw it on a shelf and that's where it'll stay.
Right.
But if you're not, if you're open to it, I would say seek out someone that can help you, someone that's been there before.
Mm.
Just because that's what I'm doing. That's kind of how I'm learning. Our medium on our team came to me and said, you have these skills, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't. And she goes, are you one of those that can tell whether someone's an asshole or not the first time you meet them? I'm like, yeah. Are you have the spidey sense going into a bad situation? Yeah. She goes, you got them. She said, you just have been very focused on your career and the traumatic things that you've gone through that you haven't seen the warning signs, so to speak. And I don't say warning signs in a bad way. Um, Open yourself up to it. So I'm working with her and a mutual friend of ours, Scotty Rorick. I just saw him
Whoa!
at an event
Yes.
in Ashmore. He kind of said the same thing. And so he's opened up and offered advice and to help me along this road as I'm kind of stress level coming way down as I retire and becoming a
Yes.
civilian member of the workforce. So, seek somebody out. There's folks out there that want to help and would gladly help.
That are
And there's people that
legit.
have been there before, and
Right.
gone through the same thing. So just reach out. Never be afraid to ask for help because everybody needs it at some point in their life.
They do. They do. I mean, I really think that's how we lift each other one heart at a time. All right, Mr. Fisher, we are coming into the end of our tour of duty with you.
All right.
Any final things that you want to say to anybody who may be watching, who is dealing with the fog and the fear of war?
Remember that unfortunately war is part of life. It's been that way since mankind first started. The cavemen used to war with it. It is a unacceptable, unavoidable fact of life. There's going to be wars from now until the day you leave this planet. However, search out the good. Look at the little engine that could, or look at the relief efforts or the people that are going above and beyond to help others hundreds of thousands of miles away that they've never met before. There's good in war. You just got to search for it. And definitely, if you're seeing things on TV and it's affecting you emotionally, seek out a counselor. That's okay. Some of that stuff that they
Yes.
paint on TV, whether you believe it or not, is really bleak and really heavy. And
Yes.
so my personal thing, I don't watch the news. I turn the news on at 18 after because I know the weather's coming on, and it turns off on at 22 after. I go back to Sports Center because
There you
that's when the
go.
weather goes off. And you know what? And in the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't. I was watching every day. What's the body count? What's this count? What's the hospitalization count? And my stress level
Right.
was way up here. Now that I don't, it's way down here. And
Get
I
through the
read
wars, yeah.
things and I read from several sources on the same topic and then I make up my own decision. Don't let TV or the internet or hard print news tell you your opinion. Make up your own.
From Garrett Fisher. All right. All right. This was amazing. I wish we had like several hours because I there's
know there's so
a
many
lot
stories
that we
could
can go into.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've known you for a few days and
A couple minutes, maybe.
you're great. You're just this great addition to any event, any group that will have you. Thank you for
thank you.
being. You're welcome. Thank you for being a feeler and for embracing this and loving it and doing it and sharing it. You tell that Mr. Scotty that we send love to him, the little light leader he is.
I will do that. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks, man. And
You
again,
are
thank you for your
welcome.
service.
Yep.
Oh, no
People are
problem.
saying, thank you for sharing,
Oh.
Gary. So interesting. Listen to you speak. We are going rogue. Why? Because we can't do it the same way we always did. And if we do it different, we're going to get different. And
Results. Yeah.
that's correct. And Gary kind of does it. Gary
Different.
does it Gary's way,
That's right.
according
Absolutely.
to his wife. So, all right. I love you. We love you.
Love you
we
guys.
will-
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
buddy.
Yes. And we want to thank you guys for watching. Tune in next Sunday when we go into more
Rogueness.
stuff. Rogue. I feel like I'm not rogue enough on this.
Oh, well, you need to get rogue then.
Like, I feel like I want to just, rogue it out. All right.
Good
So,
night, everybody.
yes, have a very good night, and we will see you
Next week.
next week.
Come here. Indeed.
Thank you for coming to our show, and good night. Woo, doggy! On to the next quest. Get out of here.
Spiritually Rogue Podcast. New world, new ways, new life. Sunday nights, 7 p.m. Central. Spirituallyrogue.com.
Over now.
Get up now. Come on. Yeah. because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.